Have you watched the Reesa Teesa story on TikTok? I think this is the longest I have been on TikTok. I have an account on TikTok, but I'm not usually on TikTok a lot. Wow. She has documented a story about her pathological liar ex-husband. That man lied about everything except his name and date of birth. He made up names of family members. He faked phone calls the whole time. He lied about literally everything. He was a narcissist. He was cheating on her. At some point, he even actually paid her home. The marriage lasted for 6 months. So she has done 50-part series, 10 minutes each on TikTok. So if you can, please watch it. I'm actually sleepy right now because I was busy watching it. So she met the guy on Facebook the ghetto, yes. And after 2 weeks, she actually moved in together with him during quarantine. And then it was downhill from there. And now that was in around March, April 2020. And then married him officially in January 2021. After marrying him, the marriage lasted 6 months, and then she filed for divorce. So it's like a movie. This morning I was telling my husband about it, and then he was like, so is it a documentary? I was telling him, she was saying he was on call every day with his family members, with a guy called John, one of his brothers, every day. And he'd tell her, John is saying hi to you. And then he'd continue with his phone conversation, smiling and all that. It was a lie. There was no one on the other end of the phone. He was faking even the phone calls. He faked so much documents. He lied to her. He took her through a roller coaster. Terrible, terrible thing. I want to talk about the lessons we can learn from Reesa Teesa's story. You don't have to go through the same pathological liar story. You don't have to go through the same pain to learn the lessons. You can learn the lessons from her. Now, the first lesson. So she met this guy on Facebook, and then after talking on phone for 2 weeks, she met him on her first date at the Cheesecake Factory. The mistake number one, on that first date, they decided we are dating for marriage. She decided to tell a stranger that we met 2 weeks on Facebook that now I'm dating you for marriage. Bad idea. Bad idea. Please listen to this clip when she says it.
So we both put on the table what it is that we wanted. We both had established we were dating for marriage. We were not dating just to date. We were not trying to be friends with benefits and none of that.
You know how I say, in most relationships, it doesn't go wrong. It starts wrong. This one started wrong. You get to date someone first before deciding, I would want to marry you. You know what? I think this can be my husband. You know what? I would actually marry this guy. You don't decide the first date on the first date. And the reason why she ignored a lot of red flags is because that decision that I'm dating you as my husband clouded her judgment. It imprinted in her head that this is gonna be my husband. So she endured things like she was already married. So it clouded her judgment. Oh, this is supposed to be my husband. So when he started cheating, when he was ignoring her, when she was in the hospital, oh, okay, so let me go back a bit. So she met him. After 2 weeks, there was gonna be lockdown. So she met him. After 2 weeks, there was gonna be lockdown everywhere. And so she says, and I want you to listen to this clip. She said she did not want to quarantine alone. So she decided to quarantine with this guy. Bad idea. And actually, it's not that she did not want to quarantine alone. It's because she was so already deep with this guy. Because she had already decided on the first date, I'm dating this guy for marriage, so why not? That is why. She said, I didn't want to quarantine alone. And at the same time, she says, my family members don't live very far. So why didn't she quarantine with her family members? Because she was desperate for this guy. She really wanted it to work. And she had decided, this is going to be my husband. Yeah. So she moved in. Actually, the guy was living in a studio apartment. They call them like that in the States, but ideally in a bed sitter. It was a bed sitter. So the guy moves in with her in her 3-bedroom townhouse, like a mansionette townhouse.
The decision was made, quarantine at my house. So the state went on lockdown. He came and stayed with me in my home.
So after that, it was just lies and faking documents and lying to her and faking phone calls every morning for 30 minutes. Like, how crazy is that? She even, at some point, she even told her, oh, my grandmother died. I'm so sad, my grandmother has died of COVID. He couldn't eat. He was devastated. She just died of COVID. Only for her to later find out the grandmother had died in 2008. So what was he crying about? He lied about so many things. He lied to her that her father was a pastor and even took her to the church where he used to minister before he died, only for her to later find out her dad never even used to go to church. His dad never used to go to church. It was just that he lied about so many things. He created another 2 sisters. He made up 2 more sisters. He had told her he had 5 siblings. But ideally he had 3. Only 2 brothers, and one of the brothers was a twin that he didn't even tell her he had. He didn't say he had a twin brother. So he always said, I have 2 more sisters. He didn't have any sisters. They were just made up people. He lied so much to her. So the first mistake was deciding too soon that this is gonna be my husband. I am dating you for marriage. The second mistake was moving in too soon. You can't move in with a guy you just met. You met him in the ghetto, that is Facebook, and you just move in with him. And quarantine was not a reason. I met my husband during COVID. Actually, the same time she met her liar ex-husband is the same time I met my husband. We also went through lockdown, like I'm saying here in Nairobi. It was not a reason for her to move in. The COVID and quarantine was not a reason. How do you move in with a stranger? You don't know if he's a serial killer. You don't know if he's gonna sodomize you when you're asleep. You don't know who you're moving in with. How do you just trust someone because of what they're telling you? You've not even observed and seen, that he's actually consistent. This is someone I'd want to be with. And I'm actually usually against moving in with someone until you're married. So in the beginning, when I say the first lesson was to learn was not deciding too soon that he's gonna be your partner. You take time. You are supposed to take time. Oh, this is for the first lesson. You are supposed to take time to get to know this person, to get to know do our values align? Do I like him? Is he respecting me? What kind of a man is he? Is he someone I see myself with long term? Those are some of the things you are supposed to look at before deciding, by the way, I can marry this guy. I can date this guy for a long time. But you can't just decide out of his word because he says, I want to date for marriage. What are you, you can't just decide out of nothing. What's the foundation? Now, the second lesson, when we come to the second lesson, you can't move in with a stranger. Guy was a stranger. Her mother, her auntie, and her grandfather were closer to where she was living. Why wouldn't she have quarantined with them? What happened to her friends? She talks about her friends a lot. What happened to her friends? Why quarantine with a stranger that you just met? That was another mistake that she made. And she actually talks about it as a mistake. And she admits that was a mistake. Another mistake. Now, they date for 6 months. She's seen the red flags at this point. She knows something is wrong. And at that point, she had started recording some recordings on her phone because she felt like things were not right. There was something, but she couldn't put a finger on it. Still feeling that way, she went ahead and went down at the courthouse and married this guy. It was during COVID, so it's like AG over here, AG weddings. So she went to the courthouse and actually married him. She had not met his family members. She had not actually even met she only met 2 guys that she was told a lie about, but that she was told they were his stepbrothers, which was a lie. So before you actually get to marry someone, I'm telling you, I met my husband during COVID, and actually we waited until I met his family members, I met his friends, I met some of his colleagues. He met my family members, he met my sister, my brother, my parents lived in the US. He spoke to my parents. Yeah, so regardless of whether there's COVID or not, there are things you can't overlook. People lie, people pretend, and people will take advantage of you if you don't look out for yourself. So, yeah. So make sure you meet the family members in person. Let them tell you stories. Go visit them. If it's their grandma, go to her house. There's no rush. Take time. Just because it's COVID, let's rush and get married. Don't rush. These are not things you rush. Forever is such a long time for you to rush here and then end up crying later. So make sure you meet his family. Please don't, we are not in good terms with my family members. Every one of them, every single family member, is a problem, I think then you are the problem. If he tells you like he has fallen out with all his family members, he is the problem. Everyone, not even your there's no one you can introduce me to. We're just gonna get married blindly. That was a problem. And you know, if maybe she'd have met the family members, she'd have realized this guy was married twice before. He told her he was married once, but when he met the brother, he realized, oh, the brother doesn't even know the ex-wife he talks about. He knows another ex-wife, the first ex-wife. She'd have even known some of those things. And actually, when she started talking to the family members, the brother told her, he's been lying since he was a child. You dodged a bullet. You were lucky you escaped. If she had met the family members, they'd have told her, by the way, do you know this guy? Have you seen his character? Have you seen his behavior, his habits? She would have known if only she'd have been a little bit patient. If only she'd have understood the process of dating and getting married, it would have been so easier. So the reason she got married is because of the first mistake of giving him a free pass, deciding too soon, I'm dating you for marriage. That's when she eventually got married, even as much as she had seen the red flags. She actually calls him the United Nations of red flags. She had seen those, and still, because she had already decided, she had seen the red flags and gotten married because she had already decided, this is gonna be my husband, whether you like it or not. Yeah, sawa. The last thing, she did not do any premarital counseling. She did not do a party after the wedding, nothing. She did not invite friends over, nothing. She went to the courthouse, signed the documents. Of course, he gave her wrong information on her marriage license. He was a pathological liar. And then afterwards, I think she says she went to work, if I'm not wrong. So that was it. Like, she lowered her standards. She gave herself a 0. She didn't even take it. She didn't know what she was getting herself into. She didn't know what a marriage is. And I say, and I tell this to all my clients, it's important for you to do a little ceremony. Don't just behave like it's a normal day while you're starting your life with someone. You're forever with someone. Do even go for lunch afterwards. Do a little something about it. You can't just be so casual about it. It's supposed to actually even be a happy thing, a good thing. We celebrate good things. We celebrate such milestones. Yeah? So you can't just walk around. You just take your clothes, take him to his place and move on with life. Mark it as a beginning of something, because it is. Yeah. So she did that. And then the last thing, she did not do any premarital counseling. They did not. One of the things that have helped us in our marriage is some of the things we were taught during premarital counseling. Your expectations in the marriage, what you're bringing, what they expect of you, your role as a wife, his role as a husband. And then we were given a lot of assignments, writing assignments, and then we'd come and read them out loud. I loved our pastor. It was such an amazing time for us, our premarital counseling. We spoke about sex, we spoke about a lot of very many things. So this is what I will say. Please go for premarital counseling. She says when she realized he had started talking to other people on Facebook Messenger about sex and all those things, they went for counseling. The pastor and his wife who were doing the counseling, the wife told them, you're not going to last for a year. She could see it wasn't going to last. And the pastor told her, if you had come to me for premarital counseling, I would have told you not to get married. They had already seen it. So if she went through the due process, get to date this guy before you decide he's the guy you want to marry. And before you get married, you meet his family members. You get to know them, meet his family members. You go for premarital counseling, and you take actually the wedding, even the process of the wedding and the transition. You take it seriously as a mark of something new. So eventually it went south, the marriage. After she got married in January, she divorced him in June on his birthday. She actually chased him out of her house on his birthday. And by then, he had actually even cheated with a hoe and paid for sex while he's living in her house. He was paying all the bills because he had a job. He lied to her so much that was the VP of his company. He would call his executive assistant apparently on the phone for her to later find out that was a lie. He was not talking to anybody because he was not the VP of his company. He was a forklift guy. He was a tractor guy. That's what we call them here in Kenya. He was a tractor guy. Wow. So please, as you watch that series, as you get entertained, please learn the lessons. You don't have to go through your own painful experiences to learn. She's spoken about this. She said she's going for therapy, and she said she is trying to change to another therapist. There's something in her that she needs to work on. Number one, raising her self-esteem, raising her standards, and she needs to also stop being too desperate. She needs to have an exacting life to stop rushing in relationships. I know I'm doing a series on why your relationships are not working. This was supposed to be episode 4, but it's also part of, I've decided to make this part of the series. So tomorrow we'll have episode 5 of why your relationships are not working, and so on until we get to episode 10. After we finish with the relationships, why your relationships are not working, then we do how to be more feminine. I'll do a series on how you can tap more into femininity, especially for the Miss Independent disease, strong independent women. Yeah. So what are some of the things you can learn from the Reesa Teesa revelation and story? What have you learned? What are the lessons you can take forward? Yeah, I'm happy to hear. Bye.